Emily stood in the middle of the crowded living room, her hands pressed together to stop them from shaking. Linda's voice cut through the noise like a sharp knife, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look at her," Linda scoffed, pointing straight at Emily. "She came into this family with nothing. Empty-handed. Not even a single gift for her in-laws." A few relatives chuckled. Some looked away, pretending not to hear. Daniel stood beside Emily, but his silence felt heavier than Linda's words. He didn't defend her. He didn't even touch her arm. He just stared at the floor, as if the moment had nothing to do with him. Emily swallowed the tightness in her throat. She forced a small smile, trying to hold herself together even as Linda kept talking, louder, sharper. "In our time, girls brought respect and value to a home. But her? What did she bring? Nothing at all." Emily's fingers curled slightly. She kept her eyes steady, refusing to give Linda the satisfaction of seeing her break. People watched her, waiting to see if she would cry or walk away. She did neither. Inside, something calm and quiet settled in her, almost like she was holding a secret close to her chest. A secret so strong that it made her stand a little straighter, even while being humiliated. She wasn't truly empty-handed. She knew it. She just hadn't spoken yet. Someone whispered, "Poor girl." And another said, "She should defend herself." But Emily stayed silent, choosing her moment. Linda stepped closer, arms crossed, her voice rising again. "A woman who brings nothing will always be nothing," she said, loud enough that even the children stopped playing. Emily felt the sting of the words, but behind her calm eyes, there was a tiny spark, hidden but bright. She knew something Linda didn't, something everyone in that room didn't. Her breath steadied. Linda leaned in, delivering one final, cutting line, one meant to crush Emily completely. "You should be grateful we even let you live under our roof," Linda said, smirking. "Without us, you'd have nowhere to go." For the first time, Emily's expression shifted. Not anger, not fear, but a quiet understanding. Because Linda had no idea how wrong she was. Emily grew up in a small, quiet home with her father. He was a simple, hard-working man who taught her to stay humble, be kind, and never depend on anyone for her worth. With no mother around, Emily learned responsibility early. She cooked, cleaned, studied hard, and helped her father with everything. Their life wasn't fancy, but it was peaceful. Her father always told her, "Real strength is silent. You don't need to shout to prove yourself." Emily carried those words in her heart. Years later, she met Daniel at a friend's birthday dinner. He was soft-spoken, polite, and seemed different from most men she knew. He listened to her, cared for her, and made her feel safe. Their romance grew slowly, gently. For the first time, Emily felt she could build a future with someone. She believed Daniel loved her for who she was, not for what she had. Daniel came from a middle-class family that was proud of their name and how people saw them. His mother, Linda, cared deeply about appearances. She liked to show others that her family was respectable and well-behaved. Emily noticed this early, but she thought she could manage. She was used to being polite, patient, and quiet. When Emily's father passed away, he left her something precious, a house he had built brick by brick over many years. It was his gift to her, his way of making sure she would always have a safe place. Emily kept this inheritance private. She didn't tell Daniel or his family. She wasn't hiding it for a bad reason. She simply didn't want anyone to think she was boasting or trying to show off. She believed some things were better kept close to the heart. After Emily and Daniel married, he suggested they live with his mother, just for a little while, until they found their own place. Emily agreed, thinking it would only be a few weeks. But weeks turned into months, and months turned into a tiring, uncomfortable routine. Linda's behavior changed quickly. At first, she acted friendly, but soon her true nature became clear. She made small comments that slowly grew sharper. She criticized Emily's clothes, her cooking, her family background. She called her too quiet, too simple, and sometimes not enough. The insults came daily now, sometimes in front of Daniel, sometimes behind his back. Daniel never confronted his mother. Whenever Emily tried to talk to him, he sighed and said, "She's just stressed," or "Don't take it seriously." His silence hurt more than Linda's words. Emily felt herself slowly shrinking. She avoided arguments. She kept her head down. But inside, her exhaustion grew. She wondered if she was losing herself, losing the quiet strength her father had taught her. She knew she couldn't live like this forever. But she didn't yet know how to change things. Linda stood in the yard surrounded by relatives and neighbors, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. She didn't even try to hide her anger. "She is useless," Linda said, pointing at Emily in front of everyone. "What kind of daughter-in-law brings no dowry? Nothing. Not a single thing." Daniel's siblings burst into laughter, nodding in agreement. One of them said, "Maybe she thought love was enough." Another added, "Or maybe she had nothing to bring." Their voices mixed with Linda's insults, echoing through the yard. Emily felt her whole body freeze. Her fingers went cold. Her cheeks burned with shame. She wanted to speak, but her throat felt too tight. She stared at the ground, unable to say a single word. Daniel stood beside her, silent again. He didn't defend her, didn't stop his mother, didn't even try to calm the situation. His silence felt like a deep cut. It told Emily exactly what she meant to him in that moment. Nothing. The neighbors nearby pretended not to watch, but their eyes stayed fixed on the scene. One elderly woman stepped closer, shaking her head slowly. "Some women hold more than they show," she said softly, just loud enough for Emily to hear. Her voice carried a strange meaning, a kind of warning or hint. "Don't let them think you are empty." Emily looked up slightly, surprised. The neighbor gave her a small, knowing look before walking away. That one sentence stayed in Emily's mind long after everyone went back inside. She felt it echo inside her chest. Some women hold more than they show. She did hold more. She had her father's house. She had security. She had something strong and real. Why was she letting these people treat her like she had nothing? As the evening grew quieter, the weight of the day pressed heavily on her. She realized something painful but true. Her silence wasn't protecting her. It was giving Linda permission to hurt her again and again. Every time she stayed quiet, Linda grew bolder. Every time Daniel stayed silent, he allowed it. For the first time, Emily saw how dangerous her quietness had become. Late that night, after everyone went to sleep, she stepped outside with her phone. Her hands were still trembling, but this time not from fear. Something else was burning inside her. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a number she had not used in months. Her father's lawyer. She pressed call. When the lawyer answered, Emily took a deep breath. "I need to discuss my property," she said, her voice low but steady. "And I need your help." It was the first step toward ending the silence that Linda's behavior became worse with each passing day. Her insults grew sharper, louder, and more frequent. One morning, as Emily served breakfast, Linda didn't even wait for everyone to sit. "From now on," she announced loudly, "you will start paying rent. This is not a free house. If you can't bring a dowry, at least don't be a burden." Emily paused, the spoon in her hand shaking slightly. Rent? In a house she didn't even own? She wanted to remind Linda that she contributed in many ways, cooking, cleaning, helping with bills, but she stayed quiet. She knew her time to speak would come later. Daniel barely looked at her. When she tried to talk to him privately, hoping for support, he sighed with irritation. "Emily, please stop creating problems," he said. "If you behaved better, Mom wouldn't be so upset." Her chest tightened. He was blaming her. She realized he wasn't going to stand by her. Not now, not later. Still, Emily didn't argue. Instead, she went to their room, closed the door, and quietly spread out the documents she had been gathering. Property papers, legal letters, and everything her lawyer had asked her to prepare. She worked calmly, even though her heart felt heavy. Linda didn't stop there. She called relatives on the phone, making sure Emily could hear every word. "I regret this marriage," Linda said loudly. "Emily is a liability. Useless. She brings nothing but stress." Every word stabbed, but Emily stayed silent, folding her documents neatly. She knew who she was, and soon they would know too. Daniel's sister added to the cruelty. She began sneaking into Emily's room, taking small personal items, jewelry, skincare, little things Emily treasured. Then she would walk into the living room and say loudly, "Emily, you really need to organize your things. You're always losing them." Emily knew the truth, but she didn't react. She kept her face calm, even though inside, she felt close to breaking. Not from anger, but from exhaustion. She had never felt so alone or so misunderstood in her entire life. One afternoon, after another round of Linda's harsh words, Emily stepped outside and took a deep breath. She felt tears pushing at her eyes but refused to let them fall. She wasn't weak. She was waiting for the right moment. With steady hands, she pulled out her phone and booked an appointment with a property consultant her lawyer recommended. The final steps were beginning. Even though the house felt heavier with tension, Emily's calmness only grew. Something inside her had settled. She wasn't going to scream or fight back with insults. She was preparing for something bigger. Something that would change everything. And soon, very soon, they would see who the real liability was. Linda picked the moment she knew would hurt the most. The house was full of guests, relatives, neighbors, friends. Everyone was talking, laughing, eating. Then Linda stood up and clapped her hands loudly. "Everyone listen," she shouted. "I want you all to know the truth about my daughter-in-law. Emily is useless. She has brought nothing to this family. No dowry, no support, nothing. She just eats and lives here for free." A few people gasped. Others looked uncomfortable. Daniel didn't say a word. He stared at the floor, pretending not to hear. Linda wasn't done. "She should be thankful I allow her to stay under this roof. If it were up to me, I would have thrown her out long ago." The room fell quiet. Emily felt her heart beating fast, but she didn't cry. Not this time. She stood slowly, her face calm, her voice steady. "Are you finished, Linda?" Emily asked softly. The guests turned toward her. No one expected her to speak, especially not like this. Linda scoffed. "Oh, look at her. Finally found her voice." Emily looked around the room, meeting every pair of eyes before she spoke again. "I have been quiet for a long time," she said. "But today, you all should hear the truth." She lifted her hand, signaling someone near the door. Her lawyer stepped inside, holding a neat folder of documents. The guests whispered as he walked toward Emily. "These," Emily said, taking the papers, "are the ownership documents of this house." A wave of shock moved through the room. Emily continued, her voice steady and clear. "This house belonged to my father. He left it to me before he passed away. I never said anything because I didn't think I needed to prove myself." She placed the documents on the table for everyone to see. Linda's face turned pale. She stumbled backward, clutching a chair. No, this can't be you? You own this house." Daniel looked at Emily with wide eyes, speechless. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The room went completely silent. Every insult, every humiliation Linda had thrown at Emily suddenly flipped back onto her. The power she once held vanished in a second. Emily stood tall, not angry, not shouting, just peaceful, strong, and finally seen. The hierarchy of the house had changed forever. Daniel followed Emily into the hallway, his face full of panic. He finally spoke after staying silent for so long. "Emily, I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know things would go this far. Please understand, I was just trying to keep peace." Emily looked at him carefully. For the first time, she truly saw him. Not as the man she once loved, but as someone who had stood by quietly while she was crushed day after day. His apology felt too late, too soft, too easy. "Keeping peace," Emily said calmly. "Daniel, you watched your mother insult me. You watched your sister steal from me. You watched everyone laugh at me. And you never said a word." He opened his mouth, but she gently raised her hand to stop him. "I needed your support," she continued. "But you supported their silence instead." Daniel lowered his head. He had no answer. Emily walked back into the living room where everyone waited, still shocked. Linda sat on a chair, trembling, her face pale. She looked smaller now, no longer loud, no longer powerful. Emily stood straight, her voice steady. "I'm not asking for anyone to thank me or praise me," she said. "But from today this house will have rules." Everyone watched her closely. "You will treat me with respect," she said firmly. "If you cannot do that, you are free to leave the house." Linda gasped. "Leave? How can you?" Emily looked at her without fear. "This house is mine. And respect is not something I will beg for anymore." Daniel's siblings stayed quiet, too embarrassed to speak. Even they knew the situation had changed forever. Linda tried to stand, her voice shaky. I didn't know," she muttered. "I didn't mean to." "You meant every word," Emily replied softly. "But now you will face what comes with your actions." Emily didn't shout. She didn't insult anyone. Her quietness was stronger than any anger. Over the next few days, she began taking control of her life. She rearranged the house, created her own space, and made clear rules about chores, behavior, and boundaries. If someone disrespected her, she reminded them, calmly, of their choice: respect or leave. Linda, for the first time in her life, had to reflect on her behavior. She moved carefully around Emily, speaking fewer harsh words. She knew the house was no longer hers to command. Daniel tried to help more, tried to talk, tried to fix things, but Emily kept her distance. She wasn't angry, just aware. She finally understood that love without support was empty. Slowly, Emily transformed. She stood taller. She spoke clearer. She walked through the house not as a scared daughter-in-law, but as a woman who finally knew her worth. She had stepped into a new version of herself, confident, calm, and unbreakable. Emily sat alone in the living room, the soft afternoon light falling across her face. For the first time in a long while, the house felt quiet, peaceful. No shouting, no insults, no tension in the air. Just calm. She leaned back in the chair and let herself breathe. Really breathe. It felt almost strange, this silence, this sense of safety. She looked around the room, remembering every moment she had stood here feeling small, feeling unwanted, feeling invisible. Now everything felt different. She thought about the pain she went through, the insults, the humiliation, the loneliness. She remembered how many times she wanted to cry but held those tears inside. She remembered how she stayed quiet not because she was weak, but because she was waiting for the right moment to rise. And she had risen. Emily closed her eyes for a moment. She didn't regret staying silent at first. It taught her a lot about people. She didn't regret speaking up in the end. It taught her about herself. She realized something beautiful and powerful. She didn't just win the house. She didn't just prove her worth to Linda, to Daniel, or to the relatives who laughed at her. She won herself back, her strength, her voice, her peace, her identity. All the parts she thought she was losing began to shine again. She smiled softly, touching the armrest of the chair, her father's chair, now placed proudly in the center of the living room. She imagined him smiling too, proud of the woman she had become. The floor creaked somewhere in the hallway, but Emily didn't turn to look. She wasn't afraid of anything in this house anymore. Not words, not people, not silence. This house wasn't just a building. It was her space, her safe ground, her reminder that she had always been stronger than they ever knew. Emily opened her eyes, feeling lighter than she had in years. She whispered to herself, not loudly, but with the confidence of someone who finally understood her own worth. I didn't lose myself. I found her again. And with that quiet truth, the story of her pain finally began to close, making room for a new beginning she fully deserved. Hey friends, thanks for watching all the way through. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.